Welcome. Again, I sit at my desk with the squeaky chair. But I want to talk about a few things today. One is quite an interesting account that occurred. You see, a while back, I helped my neighbor free her dog from being bitten. And that dog in question who was doing the biting, I believe it was a pit bull, smiled at me with the face of a djinn. And you see, it was testing me on how far would I go. You see, this morning, I went to go to the shops. And when I was there, I saw that neighbor, which was funny enough, and she works as a barista. Because I didn't order a coffee, I was just there reading the paper that was there. And a woman walked up and stood next to me. She returned today's paper. And you see, then she was going to sign up for these sort of free things where you can win a car. And you see, a while back, I actually looked into those competition things, and they're a bit of a scam because they want you to put your name and details, but then they'll call you and they want your assets and your mortgages and this sort of thing, right? And if you buy their product, you go into the drawer to win a vehicle. It's a bit of a productive scam, really, and then your name and number gets thrown out there to all of these things. So I did a bit of research into that and gladly basically was able to assist her because I was able to see that she was going to sign her name on there and put her idea into that. And I said to her, I go, just so you know that these things are a bit of a scam. They take your information, but unless you buy your product, you're not going to win. And then they have your info and you get scam calls and all this sort of thing. And she went, thank you for that. I appreciate it, and walked off. But what was really interesting was the face that I saw from her, the smile, the sort of energy, what it was reminded me of the djinn of that puppy. It was the same type of energy, the same smile, the same feeling I got. Was it another test? Perhaps. Was it something like saying to me, you went through that process to see it. Would you then use the information to help someone? Or would you watch them go through the same suffering because why? You don't know them, you don't care about them. Maybe that's their life journey. Or do you give them the information? Because she could have said, oh, that's okay, I don't mind, and then put it in, but she stopped. And she didn't do that. So therefore, I protected her with my knowledge. Now, that may have been a test from the system itself to say, would you do that even though you don't know the outcome or you don't know the person? Do you still provide that wisdom? So I found that rather interesting because it has that same idea that all of the information and the wisdom we are receiving, do we offer it to others for free? Do we, and then let them make their decisions on themselves from that? Or do we have to charge them and watch people suffer and it's their life path, they'll deal with it? Or do we go, oh, don't worry about it? And clearly I made my choice. But there was a moment of doubt in my mind. Do I say it to her or do I not? But my overwhelming sense of no, I will tell her. And I think it was just to see whether she was going to write her name down or not. But at the end of the day, I did and she didn't. So I hope that that information from her was wisdom to her. Maybe a test for me, I don't know. So many tests these days. Anyway, back to the topic of conversation. Right. I wanted to talk about how in the world today we are experiencing so much pain and fighting and trauma and anger. And I'm wondering, with all the talk about it, the recent events and everyone focusing on anger and hatred, is that what they want? Do they want the people to fight back, to create pitchforks and fires? This type of reality. And why? Why do they need to create such division, such anger, such hatred? Is it to do with being righteous and turning the good people angry, bringing out their rage and hatred, and they are just pressing and pressing and pressing until they make the good people fight, until they turn them aggressive and make them do things that they regret, those sinful actions? Because good people can turn violent if you poke them enough. That's the problem. That's what I like to think that they're trying to do, because they're trying to make people violent in the name of peace. Or is it something a little bit darker than that? Does it go more esoteric, more Gnostic in value? For those that don't know the Gnostic side of things, or Gnosis, it's a sense of core values, basically, or understanding, going through the sort of physical environments to experience them at first hand. But I want to talk about the Arcons and the Demiurge, and some of us are aware of this, but I want to throw in a different perspective, at least when it comes to all of these chaos things that are happening right now. Now, if we look at potentially what the mythology around Archons are, is that they are a ruling class of 7 particularly planets, right, that control this fabric of reality that we live in, the material world, right? So we have Sophia, who attempted to know the Father directly, and things went wrong. For example, she got split in two, so to speak, and the Demiurge was created, right? This lion-headed snake being dude who controlled the material world by having these 7 archons, right? Particularly known as Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. And each archon rules over a planetary sphere and is a guardian or a jailer of souls here on Earth, or after death. And this is where that sort of reincarnation comes back in, where you're looping in the cycle of the same thing, being reborn again and again and again into the same problem, right? So I wanted to highlight something potential, because as we evolve, as we grow further into the light and into, creation and being happy and removing all of these idiotic people in power, what if all of this stuff that is occurring now is happening to keep that Earth from evolving, keep the people from evolving into a higher sense of reality or a higher consciousness? Because, well, violence and anger is one of these 7 things. So if you look at what it is, you have like Venus and stuff like that, with desire and attraction and deception. You have the sun god, which is the radiance and fire and energy. You have Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and all of these things are basically there with their meanings and attributes. But I want to use again this number 7, so hold on to that for a bit later, because if we use this as a cosmic prison, right, we take ourselves, we're trying to evolve, we be good, we remove aspects of ourselves, we are trying to get rid of those parts that are negative, right? So I keep talking about why. What do we do with all this information? What do we do with this knowledge? Well, there are so many different parts or avenues or religions or texts and all this sort of thing that it could be this, it could be that. And it could be all of them. And they all could be a distraction. Because in the cosmic prison, in this Gnostic Gnosis type mentality, right? The material world, which is ruled by the Arcons, is known as the cosmic prison. Right? It's a layered trap separating the human soul from its source, from its divine energy. Okay? Now they maintain this by enforcing forgetfulness. So they remove the soul's memory and connection to source. We hear about this a lot. In a lot of texts, a lot of scriptures, a lot of spiritual stuff. They create false religions and laws to govern the people. They reflect the Archon's distorted view of themselves and leadership and worship. Right? The fake gods, the fake religions. And a lot of scripture and text point towards that. I am the only God, you must worship me. Right? And they bind souls to reincarnation, which I talked about. So this is the sort of thing you see. And if you take that and say that it is a prison, that's the material world. When we look at Mother Gaia, Mother Nature, the lands, that is not the material world. That is natural, that is nature, that is beautiful. Things like the latest Xbox, the latest iPhone, the worshipping a god but you must pay us for it, the prison of going and watching people in robes praying to a false god, whoever it might be, whatever your belief is around that, the lusts of desire, the temptations of food, these sorts of things become the problems of what they have placed upon us. Now, there's another section here about what talks about, well, how do they keep enforcing that? You know, that could be the Wi-Fi signals, the news, the doom and gloom, this sort of thing. And it kind of is. Because it's about the spiritual deception and the control over it. So they have control to govern reality, time, fate, right? And they do so by blinding the mind and the soul with, as mentioned, false religions, dogma, and materialistic attachments and possessions. Even the sports and the entertainments, they keep you distracted. This is the whole thing. But not only that, the perception of shape-shifting and illusion by appearing in different forms or dreams or lights and these sorts of things to deceive people. The sort of jinns of the world. The Lokis, the mischief makers. And sometimes even forcing people by getting them to do stuff. Right? So it's a rather interesting concept when you think about it, right? And you can go into a lot of it, like, is it symbolic? Is it metaphorical? All of these types of things. And it could well be, right? We don't actually know. We're all just assuming based on information we have. But let's say that it is. We have Carl Jung. Now, it's interesting because he's done so much work with a lot of this, and I believe that his information that was used to control the psyche or look at the psyche and what one does is now the same information that is used to keep us trapped. I think a lot of it comes from that. People do good to understand how something works, and then the overarching enemies or control freaks go, no, we can't have them do that, but thanks for the information. We can now use that to keep them more trapped. Right? So he talks about the fear, the guilt, the shame, and the ignorance are seen as rulers within the mind. So we understand that fear is the biggest play that they use with war and anger and these sorts of things. And that's ever prevalent now with the things that happened in Belfast and all of these types of things, right? So that in itself is a sign of, well, our controlling parts. That's not just fear, guilt, shame. That's lust. That's desire. That's gluttony, wrath, sloth. Right? The demiurge symbolizes the ego, the false sense of authorship that sees itself as ultimately the authority, right? The divine self. The process of gnosis then is the equivalent to individuation in the psychology of it, and the integration of the self through confrontation with those demons. So they look at it as, well, each of these archons, if you take the demiurge as the ego self, the archons are those parts of ourselves that we look at that are controlling us. So it could be sugars, things like that, to create gluttony. And this is why I think, personally, this is my own interpretation, that a part of it is the 7 deadly sins they talk about, right? Pride, envy, greed, lust, gluttony, wrath, sloth. All of them, right, are basically the archons themselves. These are the identities within you that has been placed there to keep you trapped. And it is to remove yourself from each one. So, pride. Now, pride can be a good thing, because having pride in what you do is powerful. But having pride in so much that you're unable to see other things or other ways is not. So we have envy, being jealous and these sorts of things. Greed for money and power and position and beauty and all of those types of things. Okay? And one of the hardest for me is, we all need money, but you don't be greedy for it. But then you don't shun yourself away from having money. So that's quite an interesting topic about greed in itself and what it means. But anyway, I digress. We have lust, which is, I think personally, is the hardest one to remove. So we'll come back. Gluttony in itself with food. Wrath as in anger, which we are at now. So they are keeping the world distracted through anger and hate and wrath and all of this, so that people are agitated. And it's creating that problem, which means they are reducing their light. And they want that. They want that anger. They want that hatred. They want that reaction. Because it's all over the news. It's all over the media. It's all over the podcasts. It's everywhere. And sloth, the laziness, the guilt tripping of people to say you're lazy, you're taking advantage, and these sorts of things. Just using the system. And we have a lot of that sloth mentality when it comes to false immigration and using the system. They want to show that. And lust is the hardest one to remove, because you have physical lust with sex sells and beautification. You have the lust of others and desires. You have the lust for new technology. It is everywhere, just portrayed differently. See, I did a test recently. I've started to remove aspects of myself that I don't want to be a part of, because it keeps you there. It draws you in. It basically attaches itself to your energy. So I did a test. For 7 days now, I haven't looked at any social media, any TikTok, any YouTube. I don't have any accounts, but I've not touched it. And I had a look at it just recently to one of those TikTok feeds. And lo and behold, the energy that is coming off of this screen, off of these people, off of these young women or men or whatever, is so attachment. It's so drawing you through to commit, to think. It's trying to attach itself to your thoughts. So you think impure thoughts, you think negativity, you think poorly against these people, because it's drawing you in. We understand the symbolism in all of it, but it's fascinating to see when you have gotten rid of it for so long and you can associate yourself to it, you feel it. And it's bad. It really is. It's controlling. So it was a wonderful test, because in my opinion, as along with Carl Jung, it is an escape of the material world. It's a removal of the attachment to the material world. That doesn't make things easier, because we need finances to live within it. We can't just go and live a hermetic lifestyle out in the wilderness and all of a sudden it'll all be fine. That's the most difficult part for me, and I think that's the most what people are looking for. How can I live a life outside of the material world but still have the finances to maintain it? I think that's the part where I'm at now. I don't know. I'm slowly running out of money again, and I have nowhere to go. No place to be, no partner, no position. I'm placing my faith in my journey, in God, in all of you, in what's going to happen. But I think when we start understanding more on a collective level that the material world is just that, whether the Arcons are real, whether the giants are real, the demiurges, whether it's all metaphorical and it's all in our minds, they have the capabilities to implant memories to make us believe what we see is real. So we create this reality. By removing ourselves from the need to have all of these things, then the easier it's going to get for all of us. Which is why the worse it gets, it means the closer we are. At least in my opinion anyway. So yeah, I thought I'd just share something different that, again, as we talk about the ego death and the male and the feminine coming together and becoming united in ourselves and removing the need for outside help, outside influences, outside material possessions, it just seems more and more closer that these things are happening. There's more synchronicities with possibility. So anyway, something I thought I'd share, and for those that are still listening, thank you. I appreciate it, and maybe you got something from it as well. So does with that, I leave you with peace and love. Take care.